Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. Yeah, we should probably check and make sure. We should be good with the mics. I think everything's good here. We've had to replace some hardware, but I think we're doing good. Thank you so much all for joining us. And so let's start off with some unconfirmed reports. And one is that the Russian Ministry of Defense is accusing Ukraine of planting explosives on ammonium and chlorine cylinders in Sumy. Now, this is where there was going to be a meeting. In fact, there was a meeting of a number of members of UN countries. What was it? We had the Deputy Prime Minister, I think, of Poland, a few others, and this was pretty much this was panned in the media as being a really bad idea, bringing them into the country. They essentially had to be smuggled in, and we're going into a pretty serious war zone. It looks like everybody made it okay, but the Russian Ministry of Defense apparently at this point is suggesting that the Ukrainians themselves were going to deploy chemical weapons during that meeting. Now, that obviously would be counter to their best interests. They obviously would like to get as much help as possible from these countries. They're not going to be killing the leaders of Poland, but nonetheless, we're bringing this up because we are concerned at this point that Russia is trying to generate some kind of false flag in order to begin the use of chemical weapons. We've mentioned this before. It's the same pattern for starting the war in the first place. Was going to be we had a false flag that we were anticipating. They tried several times and finally just decided to go in. Just said, hell with it, we're going in anyway. So we'll see what happens, but we're keeping an eye on that. It's also, we discussed with you the bombing of a shelter in Mariupol. This is that shelter as it exists today, as you may recall. And you can see the first, it's in the center of the screen there. More than almost what appears to be about 2/3 of it has been completely obliterated. There was, at first reports, several hundred people there. We now believe it's at least 1,200 women and children. You can also see, barely, you can make out the text "Ditsi," which is Russian word for children. It appears to have been deliberately targeted. It was, it's not a military target. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said to you guys by this point 1,000 times over. They're deliberately targeting, and you can see they didn't hit anything else but this one building. The good news is that apparently most of them were in a bomb shelter down at the bottom of the building. And at first reports, there's actually, to the best of my understanding, no reports of anybody killed in it. The bad news is that they can't get to that shelter. And they've been getting a few people out. I think of the suspected 1,000, roughly 1,200 people in there, they've managed to get about 116 out. The problem is the area is still being shelled, so they can't rescue anybody. So at a minimum, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it's still a pretty dire situation over there. And again, it's crystal clear that it was deliberately targeted. Yuri Gagarin is a name that most Americans, they've heard of the name, but they have no idea who he really is. And it's unfortunate because Yuri Gagarin was, of course, a Soviet hero. But he was more than that. He was a hero, really, to all living human beings. He was one of those people who showed us who we could all be, not just Soviet Union, but Americans. His name is no different than that of Neil Armstrong, other heroes, Winston Churchill, that most Americans don't really realize just how important a human being he was in history. Martin Luther King Jr., a hero for basically all of humanity. Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space. He was Soviet. And the Space Foundation has decided now to replace the annual Yuri's Night at the yearly Space Symposium with, quote, a celebration of space, discover what's next. Now, despite his being a member of the former Soviet Union, he's actually held in very high regard in Ukraine. And there's even, I think it's what we would call a soccer stadium named after him. And, he has very little to do with the current Russia which is attacking Ukraine. The magazine Futurism wrote, quote, erasing the name of the first person ever to fly into space while supportedly celebrating human achievements in space is bad enough, but doing so in line with the, and I don't even know how to pronounce this word, milquetoast trend of disavowing all things Russian, including famous composers and food products, amid the country's current invasion of Ukraine is just outrageous. And I honestly couldn't agree more. There's a yes, we're imposing sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Apologies. We're banning Russian products. I think it's important to put as much economic pressure on Russia as we can. It's really the only tool we have at this point to stop what is absolutely genocide. But that doesn't mean we can or should erase part of what is the collective human history from the face of the planet. And I'm not sure that this kind of assault, not on a Soviet culture, but really the culture and heritage of this entire planet, the first human being ever into space. That's an achievement that really belongs to all of us, as indeed Neil Armstrong is equally, belongs not just to the United States, but to everybody. But nonetheless, that's part of the part of the fervor that is going on right now. Now, for a brief moment, it actually appeared as if many of our prayers had been answered when a live event in which Russian President Vladimir Putin suddenly vanished from a state broadcast during a speech to mark the 8th anniversary of the annexation of Crimea. We eventually got to see the whole footage, but until that time, we honestly had no idea what happened. The event just seemed to cut away. It appeared to most of us looking at it as if something had happened. They didn't want you to see what happened, so they dumped out of whatever buffer they had and just went to a separate part of the event. We'll show that to you right now. This is what happened. This was live. He was speaking. Now this is ended up really being a pro-war rally. We'll talk about this in a second, but let's watch this event.
Так получилось, что начало операции совпало, совершенно случайно совпало с днем рождения одного из наших выдающихся военно...
So they cut to this. What is this? The singing of Forward Russia. And they just cut to this immediately. And to those of us who I think were wish thinking that what that meant was something perhaps had happened to him while he was in front of this audience, very shortly thereafter, there was actually one or two other quick cuts. And then you saw his speech in full. You saw him finishing, which he only had about 30 seconds left in his speech. And then he left. No, he is, I'm sorry to say, still alive. But it was a very interesting and actually kind of amazing few minutes to realize that maybe, just maybe, and it's unusual to be feeling this kind of thing about anybody, but oh dear Lord, it's the only way out that I see. So that was earlier today when it looked for a few minutes like perhaps something had happened to Putin. My condolences. He appears to be just fine. But there are unconfirmed reports that as many as 6 of Putin's inner circle have been either detained or arrested, branded as traitors. This purportedly also includes the head of the FSB and other intelligence agencies. Now, Colonel General Sergei Beseda and his deputy, who had the FSB and the deputy head of the FSB, are being held after allegations of misusing operational funds earmarked for subversive activities and for providing poor intelligence ahead of Russia's now stuttering invasion. This may be completely legit, but there's a large number of people that Putin has now either fired or detained or purportedly arrested. It also looked like there may be some serious strife in his inner circle and attempts to remove him, but it's not confirmed. We do know now at this point, it does appear to be confirmed that Sergei Beseda has been removed, as has his deputy. charges of misusing funds and getting the intelligence wrong on the invasion of Ukraine. Clearly, the intelligence was wrong. That we know. So whether there was anything more or not, right now is just rumors. So we're going to stay on that. We're going to stay on what's been going on with the chemical weapons, and we're going to stay on what's happening with the UN, which, while not being reported in mainstream media, is, I think, another avenue of genuinely attempting to try to end this. Putin cannot have the UN boot him out. He cannot lose veto power on the Security Council. That would be devastating to them. So we're going to keep on that, even though, again, mainstream media hasn't been really staying on that. So what's going on right now in Ukraine? Earlier today, this map just had dots all over it. There was shelling of a huge number of cities. Some cities that have only been shelled once or twice throughout the entire war were shelled again. Some brand new cities. It looks like about almost 12 new cities. They are not being shelled right now, so the dots are not up there. These are sort of more recent activities. What you can see is they have finally bridged the Donbass and the Crimea fronts. This has been absolutely critical to them because it's how they're going to supply the Donbass. Now, the primary supply that they really do need to still obtain is this road, M14, right through Mariupol. As you can see, they've made some progress into Mariupol. Mariupol is under, as it's been since this has really started, a massive siege. We have this, I believe, as I mentioned earlier, this is the theater in Mariupol, direct hit to a shelter. This is not Mariupol, sorry, this is Kharkiv right here. This was, I think, from earlier today. As you can see, the homes have been shelled, and in some cases there are reports of residents still living in these homes, because even though they could collapse at any minute, there's nowhere else to go. So in all of these areas, again, the power, gas, heat, electric, it's all been cut. So it's already turning into a humanitarian crisis, and it's only going to get worse. We have here they're continuing to expand westward. One of these days I'll get that right. Chernihiv here is undergoing some pretty significant shelling. We've seen a dramatic increase over there. And we've seen, as it's been really since the start of this, Kiev, and was that Kiev? Did I manage to, I managed to land on Kiev in one shot, although it doesn't seem to, all right. Well, at any rate, Kiev is still, for the most part, completely surrounded. But for the most part, again, while there has been shelling there, and the shelling has increased some, Kharkiv and Mariupol are the two that are getting the brunt of it. Kharkiv over here, once again getting shelled, and once again this is a picture of an apartment complex that just had an entire side of it blown completely off. You can see bullet holes. We've shown footage already of tanks just directly opening fire on apartment complexes, and we had Commander Lance McMillan on to discuss the how and the whys of that, which, as horrific as it is, he was at least able to put it in a context that, unfortunately, we could understand. So, as you can see, once again, and we've been watching this map for almost a month now. I think we're entering our fourth week. You can see they're slowly but surely taking over more and more of this map. The latest, I think, from the UN on casualties is, I believe, 800 civilians dead, but even the UN acknowledges that this number is probably a drastic undercount, and 1,200 civilians injured. We're not going to know the numbers, I think, until this has been over for some time. You can also see, by the way, this is important, we talked about this river, and that if they ever move west of the river, they're planning on taking the entire country. And we actually knew basically from the first night, once again, we had on Commander Lance McMillan, who said Odessa was the indicator of what was going to happen in the future. If they attempted to destroy Odessa, which they'd have to deal with Odessa one way or another. Odessa is potentially a launching off point to defend the rest of Ukraine, and if they decide to attack more than halfway west of the river, Odessa would be a godsend in terms of resupply for the Russians. So if they destroyed Odessa, that was a pretty good indication that they weren't going to go west of the river. However, he said, listen, if they land amphibious or paratroopers in Odessa, then they're trying to take it, and once they get it, once they've moved more than about halfway past the river, Odessa can be used to supply the front lines. Well, they've been trying to take Odessa now for quite some time. They're still trying to take Odessa, and as you can see, they have moved well past the river, to the west of the river. So their goal, and I think we already kind of knew this, but we're now seeing this really in action. Their goal is obviously to take the entire country. There's no point in moving west past the river unless you want to take the whole country. All the best production is the river itself and east of the river. Once you've taken the river, there's not much else you can get west of the river that's of any value. The river itself is great for moving imports and exports through the country. Most of the food and production is all west of the river. So what are they doing east of the river? The only thing they can be doing is trying to take the rest of the country. So we're going to keep an eye on that. The good news is it's been going a lot slower than anticipated. The bad news is, as usual, they're still attacking. They've attacked, the town hall of, oh dear Lord, they've attacked in the Lviv region. Okay, that was this one right here. This is just outside of Lviv. This is Busaka, I think. Is that correct? The town hall there is on fire. That's one of the new cities that has been bombed recently. They've been shelling a number of the smaller provinces outside. The Mariupol Council is also saying that Russians are now essentially evacuating Mariupol, which I suppose is good, but they're evacuating them against their will to Russia. I don't know what awaits them when they get to Russia. I suppose alive is better than not. But they're certainly not, they're being taken, I don't know, prisoners of war. I don't know what it is, but they appear to be evacuated. I would assume through this road M14. They now have enough of this road that they can move people out and just go straight into Russia through that road. If they're getting civilians out, I don't know what kind of blessing that is, but at a minimum. Yeah, do we have any credible explanation? This is Michael Westby. Do we have any credible information as to the incidents in Belarus? Well, yeah. So, no. What we do have is the Belarusian authorities saying that all of that was actually exercises that they had planned ahead of time. And, that was what everybody heard. Now, keep in mind that all those explosions were at the middle of the night, and airplanes scrambled after the explosions, not before. So it seems to me, and why you would do exercises in the middle of a city and without warning the residents and between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning is beyond me, but that's what the government of Belarus has been saying. The opposition says that they engaged in a number of strikes, but they haven't elaborated past that. We haven't seen any footage. We haven't seen anything. If there's anything out there, I've been looking for it. We haven't found anything that suggests exactly what happened. We've got two different narratives. Obviously, the rebels are somewhat more credible, just because, I don't see them doing exercises in the middle of the night. It looks like it may have been an attempted coup. But I don't know. Maybe it was just harassment. I don't know. It was some kind of attacks. That's all we've got. I think that the Belarusian government is full of it when they say it was not exercises. I'm sorry, it wasn't. But we have nothing past that. So it's a good question. I'd like to know. We don't know. We haven't heard anything from it. We've been actively looking and haven't found anything. But that is an interesting. So the two biggies that I think that we've covered that you basically can't find in mainstream media. Yeah, well, yeah. I don't think it was a false flag. I think it was rebels. I think it was the rebels trying to recapture the government. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. The mainstream media isn't covering what I think are two huge stories. One is the International Court of Justice, which is a binding, telling Russia to stop, and they have not even slowed down. I don't know how long it takes before there is a motion put forward to expel Russia from the United Nations, but that's serious. They're already under sanctions that are having a crippling impact. There was an article, I was reading it earlier. I probably should have brought it to you guys. I apologize. From a former FSB agent who said, yeah, look, and this guy's, I guess they tried to poison him twice. He said, somebody's going to get Putin. That's usually, that's how the Russians do things, and they've passed the point where somebody's trying. It's like somebody's trying. It's just a question of, at this point, cat and mouse. He knows it. He knows they're trying to get him, and so it's a question of how many people are trying, and if they can infiltrate his security and hopefully get him really by any means necessary. So we'll see. What is it? Depose with prejudice. Hashtag depose with prejudice. So we'll see. But that and the Belarus attacks aren't really being covered. So we're doing every follow up we can. If you want to see what we're doing and how we're doing it, come on in, join our Discord. The Discord is where we collate all the news that we're covering. And it's not just this, and we're starting to get back to sort of our regular schedule. We're not going to drop this, but it's there isn't a day to day. It's more civilians being targeted. It's more families being killed. It's more, and some of it's great stuff. There was an interview today with a pensioner who was fighting, and he was sort of describing the fighting and holding back the tears, and I started to talk about how terrible it was, and he's like, well, no, it's fine, everything's fine, everything's going to be fine. And you can find this and so much more on our Discord, both in terms of this and in terms of what's going on in the U.S. I personally right now am really Governor Greg Abbott has gotten on my last nerve, and I actually needed a break from him anyway. I'm not sure that a war in Ukraine was the best break I could have had from him, but as we're watching what he's doing to families in Texas, and as we're watching the targeting, not just of trans people, which is genuinely bad fucking enough, but trans children, and the targeting of their entire families in Texas, that's something that we have not covered yet, and we have limited bandwidth here. Unfortunately, we've most of the people here are volunteers. They've been with us for a very long time, and so we get a tremendous amount done. But we have limited bandwidth. We are going to start. We've been able to, because this is just it's suffering, and I don't think we should stop showing the suffering. We're not going to stop showing the suffering. It's not easy. I don't want to see it. I know you don't want to see it, but it's the reality, and as adults, ostensibly, we need to face that reality, because when you give up, and I think empathy fatigue was something that Sinister Porpoise had said before, but there was another one, compassion fatigue, and that's a real thing, and maybe, thank God, it's a real thing, because if these soldiers didn't face that, they wouldn't be able to do their jobs. So, but we have to keep covering it as long as we can, and we're going to. But we've gone down to every other day, and maybe even every third day. We have coming up on Tuesday, Dr. John Shook is going to be back for our I almost said Ask a Philosopher, dear Lord, for our series on philosophy. Don't pass that one around. For our series on philosophy, and we're going to be doing philosophy of science. So I'm really looking forward to that show. We've got a few other shows that we're planning, including we're going to do a hang with Commander McMillan. I think everybody needs to kick back, have a beer, and chat with the guy. He's one of the most fascinating people probably I've ever met, and his breadth of experience is staggering. So we're going to, we've got some good stuff coming up, and we're going to stay on these things that the mainstream media is missing. That's what we do, and we're going to keep doing it. So check us out on the Discord. Check out our regular content, which is going to start to come back, and we're also going to start focusing again a bit more on what's happening around the rest of the world. We haven't had the time. This has been all-consuming for most of us here, and it's still, I think, absolutely, irrefutably the most important thing we are covering. And unfortunately, there are scenarios. We've talked about this, and I think this is important. We've covered more. This is probably the third or fourth time that we've covered something, and World War III was the trending hashtag on Twitter. And we try to, it does go way back. Wow, I know. Tell me about it. I did enjoy those very much, but at any rate, that notwithstanding. So, dear Lord, scatterbrained today. I derailed myself. This is like the second or third time I've derailed myself. World War III has been a trending hashtag many times. Not many, at least. I think this is probably the third time World War III has been the trending hashtag, and we've covered it, and we've been covering it for a period of weeks. And it's always one of those things that we try to talk to our audience, frankly, about, and say, listen, yeah, sure, every world war that ever started this way. Yep, you got it. But this kind of thing actually happens quite a lot and doesn't trigger a world war. So I'm still very much in the optimistic camp that this isn't going to spread much further. It will spread a bit further. Belarus is already learning that, and China has yet to really weigh in. I did fail to mention, I wanted to mention this, that China has actually, the Chinese media has started posting the casualty reports from Ukraine, which is, this is Chinese media, so that is cautious optimism towards the notion that they're going to start coming down a bit more on the side of the rest of the world on this, and I hope that continues. Yeah, fair porpoise. All right, so at any rate, what I tell people is, if you're not worried about this expanding, then you're not paying attention. On Fox News, there was, oh dear, I forget the senator. I think, was it Lindsey Graham? I think it was Lindsey Graham, who came on and said that we should do a no-fly zone over Ukraine. I'm not entirely sure he's wrong, to tell you the truth, but for one fact, the real question is, what's the likelihood that will escalate into a war between NATO and Russia? What's the likelihood? The real question is, what's Putin got to lose? Because once Putin's got nothing left to lose, then we've got a real serious problem. And this is the problem with brinksmanship, right? There is a line somewhere. Somewhere there's a line, and you cross that line and you've gone too far. That's brinksmanship. The problem is the gray area around that line, and we don't really know where it is. That's what makes this an extraordinarily dangerous game to play. So let me ask a simple question. What's the probability that Putin would not go to war with NATO if, or maybe not go to war, but at least fight, if we put up a no-fly zone and he violates it and then shooting starts? I don't know who you could say started the war, but if NATO and Russian troops are fighting at each other, planes are shooting at each other, okay, we're at war. What's the likelihood of that happening? Lindsey Graham seems to think pretty small. Is it 5%? Let's say it's 5%. I'll say it's 5%. Well, those are pretty good odds. What happens if we're wrong? How many times have the odds been 5% or lower, from the Cuban Missile Crisis to, what was it, oh, dear Lord, I forgot. There's been a number of incidents where things have gotten pretty close. Much closer than I feel comfortable with in terms of a nuclear war between Russia and the United States and or NATO. If every one of those has only a 5% chance, well, those are happening way too frequently. I don't care how low the odds are. They're not zero. And so Lindsey Graham may be right. It might well work. The odds may even be well in our favor, but we can't keep rolling the dice every time the odds are in our favor, because one day it'll roll the wrong way. So, we've heard this from a number of people who, again, I can't tell you they're wrong that he wouldn't do it, but they don't know for certain. So that's sort of what we're looking at right now. Let's see. Oh dear Lord! All right. Well, hold on a sec. Hey. Here we are. We're bringing people together on this show. So glad to hear it. Thank you. So at any rate. Oh, Jesus, Tony Designs. There's very little. And he still has a wrench. I really don't know how that works. I don't know how that works. One of these days I would try to figure it out, but it's one of those things that's a deep dive, and I've never found the bottom of that hole. Yeah, dear Lord. Give me a second on that one. There we are. Yeah, sometimes I forget. Every time I forget, he comes up and reminds me. So I mean, that's the deal. There's no easy answer to this. If you're not worried, you're not paying attention. But if you're terrified, if you're so scared you can't enjoy your day, well, disengage, take a break. We're not there yet. And if anyone's going to tell you when we're there, it'll be us. We'll tell you. We'll tell you too, because hey, you know what? That's great for ratings. Ask Fox News. It's great for ratings to sit there and tell everyone to be terrified. No, we're not there yet. At least not in my view. So live your lives. We're gonna do our shows. We are not letting go of this. But we're also going to be covering other things because there's other important stuff going on, and because this will end. And this will end, hopefully, for the best. Hopefully, ideally, regime change. And, we don't want to forget to build the future. This is not a no thought for tomorrow time here. So we're going to be slowly getting back to our regular schedule. We're going to follow up, like I said. That was a good question, Michael. We haven't figured out what's going on in Belarus, and we haven't figured out what's going on in the UN. I'm optimistic about both of those. I'll do my best. All right, I'll do my best to let you guys know when the world is ending. So, what I'm going to do now, we've covered the map. There is a big piece of news. They have really completely and wholly bridged these two regions. It's not an easy bridge. They actually still don't have a direct road. If you take a look at all of these roads, none of them directly go from Donbass to Crimea. They've got a couple of ways that they don't control yet, and a very circuitous route that actually even goes out of controlled areas. So even though they control all this area, I don't even know. I suspect that this is like a rail system. Is that what that is? The Russian troops have kidnapped over 22 Ukrainian activists. Yeah, and they're still arresting. We do have footage. This is also in the Discord of what was absolutely an amazing situation. I think it was in Red Square. There was a reporter who was allowed to be there and was asking questions, but there's a reason the reporter was allowed to be there. It's because anyone who was talking to the reporter was being arrested. And there was if I recall correctly, someone had written 2 words, the phrase 2 words in Russian. They wrote that in Russian on a pad of paper. And they went up and they said, I have 2 words for you. And they said 2 words. Literally, that's what it said. And that person was arrested and taken away. All they said literally was 2 words. Now, there were people there who were saying, too, that this is a war and that it's an illegal war and they want it to stop, and they were being arrested, and the cameraman just said, does anyone want to talk to us? And somebody would come up and just start to talk, and they'd be arrested. 1 or 2 people came up and even started to say, well, we think that maybe Putin has a point here, and they're arrested because they're just talking to the press. And it was an amazing thing to see people knowing that they were going to get arrested and basically standing in line to talk to a camera, and in some cases to make the point that they weren't even saying anything. They were saying literally 2 words, and they were getting arrested. So it's as close to a tipping point over there as I've ever seen. I hope it means something. We're going to keep an eye on it. So if there are any other questions before we start to wrap up, like I said, we're going to have a couple of hangs and let people blow off some steam on other topics and on this topic too. We're going to have a couple of After Darks coming up. So I hope you guys will join us for that. In time, we'll be back. For those of you who are new, this is just one of our shows. This is Overtime. This is our news show. We have also an interview and discussion show. Who's on first? Yeah, let's not start that again. We were doing that on the Discord for about 8 hours. Poor Titan, who's seen me do that more than once. I still think that is one of the most brilliant routines ever conceived. All right, yeah, let's take a look. Good call, Wednesday. Let's take a look at the Ukrainian map just a bit bigger here, and I mean you can see it's this is so much slower. We predicted, like most of the world, that this would be over within 7 days. We predicted that have the river within 2, maybe 3 tops, that stay there for 1 or 2 to secure maybe 10 miles, maybe a bit more than that, west of the river, and then they'd continue west. Obviously, that hasn't happened. So, anti-ballistic missiles being put in Ukraine by the U.S. supposedly. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that. I have heard that Russia has said that they've used hypersonic missiles in Ukraine. Why? I have no idea. If somebody can explain it to me. The hypersonic missiles have only one advantage over any other missile. One. Which is they can get through any kind of missile shield anybody has ever even dreamt of to this date. We haven't even built a really reliable missile shield. We haven't. We have an idea of how to do it, and we can shoot down a missile or two, realistically. Probably more than that. I'm being a little pessimistic there. But, we can't stop a tenth of an all-out attack on the U.S. We can't do it. Even like right now, even theoretically with what we've got, if we had a full missile shield deployed, we couldn't do it. So this hypersonic missile is even harder. It can actually dodge attacks. It's way too fast to hit, and Russia's got them. We know Russia's got them. We've been developing. We talked about North Korea successfully launching one off, and that was actually rather frightening because that meant they could probably hit us if they wanted to. Now, they couldn't obliterate us. And they probably wouldn't because they'd know that the retaliation would end North Korea. But nonetheless, I'm not thrilled at the idea of Kim Jong-un having a nuclear missile that's hypersonic. Having said that, I have no idea why Russia said that they've successfully deployed hypersonic missiles in Ukraine. Probably just to brag. Why waste the missile? Hypersonic missiles are still reasonably new technology. I don't know why to waste them here. They're not going to get you anything. So Kiev, Wednesday wanted to see Kiev a little bit more. We covered it already. There isn't much. We do know the column has started moving again, but it's moving. The last I saw, it was moving less than 3 miles a day. It looks like for now they haven't made Kiev a priority, probably because they can't, realistically. They haven't encircled it. They can't go in now. It's been so long that there are roadblocks and barricades almost every block. So my suspicion is they're going to encircle it, they're going to wait, and once people are starving and morale is low, go in very slowly. We do have reports that morale continues to sink in the army. They've been putting forward generals into more forward positions. The reason this is done in general is because when the generals are sort of fighting side by side, the theory is, at least to the best of my knowledge, and I am not Commander McMillan, I'm not even is Andring, who would know more about this than I do, but to the best of my understanding, when you have generals in the front, it boosts morale because you have your leaders fighting side by side. The generals don't want to do that, especially when there are significant losses. Last I saw, I think the U.S. had an assessment that it was about 10,000 casualties for the Russian side, which is staggering considering how, and I think that's more losses than we had in Afghanistan and I want to say Iraq put together. And they've suffered that very, very quickly. So morale is low. These are conscripts, many of them. These are people who were told that these were training exercises, and they're now killing people, and in many cases they're killing innocent people. So the generals have been moved forward. I've heard as many as between 8 and 20 generals have now been killed. That's a serious problem. What Russia's going to end up starting to have to do is they have to backfill these losses. How are they going to do that? Well, now they've got a problem because morale is so low, you're not going to be able to, and you can't have people continuing to desert. The reports of deserting seem credible, and it's just units just giving up their tanks, and we've seen pictures of it. Maybe for next show we should focus on that some. Again, join us on the Discord and help us out with that. And we're informed a great deal by what people put on that Discord and how we sort information there. So come on in and join us and be a part of the process. But what we've seen is a number of tanks being and military vehicles just being abandoned, and they're walking off into the woods. We've heard at last report 800 captured Russian soldiers, which is actually pretty high given how this has been unfolding. So I think they've been surrendering rather than fighting. Well, now you've got a problem because you can't keep that happening. So you have to recruit. You have to tighten up your recruitment procedures and make sure that you've got people who are not going to desert. But that's a very high bar at this point, and so Putin's got a lot of problems. I'm curious to see more. I mean, the last photo that we have of him, or the last image was it? I think it was today, or it was early in the AM when he was in front of that huge audience and he appeared to suddenly just vanish, and they cut to something else. We're like, what happened to him? But he seemed reasonably healthy there, so I don't know. He doesn't seem to be stressed to me, which is a bit of a shock. But we'll see. Anyways, let's see. You guys wanted to see, like I said, not much has changed. The biggest change is they have finally, at least in terms of control, gotten these regions. To the best of my knowledge, these are all back roads. They still absolutely have to take Mariupol. Their main goal is to get M14 across there, and they are what? That's 2 miles that's left. 2 miles that they have to get. And they're shelling the living. I mean, what they're doing to that population at this point. Like I said earlier at the top of the show, they are taking some of them and bringing them against their will to Russia. I'm not even sure what that really means at that point. I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, yeah, I'd rather be a POW in Russia than being shelled in Mariupol. And that's a tough choice. I mentioned that when we used to talk about the child labor camps in China, and one of the things that people didn't realize about the labor camps in China was that the children were actually there voluntarily. Yeah, there were machine guns, but it was to keep other children from coming in and trying to work. And the reason was because it was either that or starve to death. So you have to ask yourself just how bad the situation has to be that's your chosen option, is to work basically as slave labor. Our option here is go to Russia, and who knows what's going to happen to them, or be shelled. We'll see what happens. We're going to keep an eye on that. So let me finish up with the live chat, and then I think we'll start. How many American weapons have gotten to Ukraine so far? I don't know. There was a great report, and that's also in the Discord. I think it was the BBC followed along one of the routes trying to get weapons to Ukraine, and they were just describing this clandestine attempt to, and they tried to take photographs. Like, nope, you don't get to photograph this one. They had to turn off the geolocation on their phones, and this was serious. But they got a whole bunch of. It was two convoys on the same road at 2 different times, and they know Russian satellites are trying to find them. They know that they could get shelled at any time, and they're just trying to get all this equipment into ammunition and vehicles into Ukraine. And so that also is on our Discord. Come in and check that out. That Putin rally. And the other thing I want to mention about that, again, it looks like many of the people there were gang pressed into it. Some people were saying that their bosses just told them, okay, you're taking the day off from work today, but you're all going to this event, this pro-war event. And people just showed up. They didn't, when they weren't sitting there saying like, oh no, we're not going to. Yeah, they went. So, yeah. All right. So let me just see. I think that's about it. What star rank of I don't know. I haven't done a deep dive into that. I think that's an interesting one. That's a good question. So. Well, thank you. I do. Nick is a very warm host. Well, thank you. I do my best. I luck out, and we get a lot of really good guests too, for which I am thankful. I'm thankful for the people who help us get those guests, and for the people who've been supporting this program, because it's those are the ones who do it. And somebody had mentioned, I do want to quickly, because somebody had mentioned Sundays, and I missed that. I used to debate. I used to debate reasonably frequently, and I was starting to get pretty high in debates. There was a number of reasons that I kind of stopped doing that. I'd like to get back into it. One thing for me on debates is I don't like to lose. So I will spend 2 weeks minimum 24/7 debate prep. I don't have that kind of time now, but the debates that I did, I think you'll see I was prepared. I was prepared. So, and you can see I have my own personal channel. You can see debate against Hovind, S.J. Thomason, a few others. Reasonably small potatoes, not any of the biggies, but I do love debates. Sunday was President Sunday was good enough to have me on, and if Sunday wants me around, I'll be around. I will say this: I'm a jack of all trades. There's a lot of stuff I know a good deal about. Sunday's knowledge of politics and history dwarfs mine, so I just try to be a little careful there, not to step in and say something truly stupid, because he knows a lot more about that stuff than I do. I genuinely love being there, and I learn something every time I'm there. And I really like him. He's a great guy to hang out with. So I appreciate that he has me over there. I got to be a little careful. I'm here. I know what I'm doing. Over there, a little less so. Does he know his stuff? But he recommended some books. I'm gonna definitely start getting into those, because he had some, Nick Fuentes on it was an interesting debate. It was a little weird because the name Nick is not that common, so it's rare that there's Nick confusion, very rare. But when it happens, it's just always like, okay, which Nick are you talking? And I just always think they have to be talking about me. And it's like, wait, there is another Nick here. It's just a rare thing. But that was hilarious. That was a lot of fun. That was great of Sunday to have us on. Like I said, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have Mowdy is going to be guest hosting. In fact, we may actually move Mowdy to the primary host position. I may take a back seat on Tuesday, let Mowdy host, and there's a couple. Maybe Mowdy will be hosting. We'll see. But have him host and talk to Shook. He's a big fan of Shook, and he and Shook can talk about, and Mowdy knows more about philosophy of science than I do. So Mowdy, Shook, philosophy of science. I think that's going to be a good show, as Andrew's going to be with us. That'll be Tuesday, 9 p.m. already booked. Come join us for that. We're going to try to get Commander McMillan on. He is just absolutely amazing, and anyone who's seen him knows we are very lucky to have him. And we're going to have an After Dark. You guys can come in and chat with him. So we'll be doing that coming up. We've got a couple of After Darks planned. Come join us on the Discord. You'll see the schedule, see what we got planned. Thank you all very much for joining us. I think I'm going to leave it at that. It looks like there are a few other questions. I'll be on the Discord. I'm probably going to hit the Discord maybe in about an hour. I'll be on the VC. Anybody wants to join? Thank you all again for your support and for joining us. And I keep saying, hopefully we won't have cause to come back on. We're really coming on when something tragic happens. Now let me rephrase that. Hopefully we'll be coming on with good news. There's been the deposition with deposed deposition. That doesn't sound right, but deposed with extreme prejudice. With any luck, we'll have that. That was a blessed half hour where I really thought there was a shot of it. That was an amazing feeling, and it's weird to feel that way about the suffering of another human being. But at any rate. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Short of that, hopefully next time we see each other, it'll be for that reason. But if it's not, look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you on the Discord. And see you Tuesday. Night all. Nope.